Welcome to week 11, chapter 14, and this is an example for problem number 3. A magazine publishes the top 100 companies to work for every year, which includes the percentage growth in jobs at each company. The output to the right, that's all of this data here in this section, shows the regression of the 2012 job growth percentage on the 2010 job growth. We'll actually use this output to calculate or to explain 4 parts. The first part, we're asked to state the hypothesis about the slope, both numerically and in words. Now, what the hypotheses are, I'll highlight them here for you so you can follow. H0, the job growth in 2012 is not related to the job growth in 2010, and that would give a beta 1 value coming from this relationship between the variables. If beta 1 is 0, it means that the value of x does not influence the value of y and is dependent on everything else. So in that case, there is not a relationship. So it takes a little concentration to get it. It's not related if this value is 0. Now the alternative hypothesis is always that the growth is in fact related between the two variables, and in that case beta 1 is not equal to 0. And if you notice, the only alternative is not equal to, there isn't an option for less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. It's always a two-sided test, because if it's not 0, it means that there is a relationship. If it's negative, it means that if x increases and this is negative, this is going to decrease. So there's an inverse relationship, not an inverse relationship, but a negative relationship. And what they're saying is if it's positive, then there's a positive relationship where an increase in x results in an increase here. So this with a little thought, this is not very surprising that it's always a not equal to sign. Because remember, all we're trying to suggest or test is there a relationship or is there not a relationship between the two? The second part of the problem seeks to ask about, assuming that the assumptions for inference are satisfied, perform the hypothesis test and state your conclusion assuming that alpha is equal to 0.05. Now the important thing to look at for this analysis that's provided, the first row has to do entirely with the intercept, and typically we are less interested in the intercept than we are in the coefficient of x, which is always going to bear more weight on the relationship, on the strength and the existence of that relationship. Now the t statistic is 1.49, which you find here, which is the t ratio, the ratio of the coefficient to the standard error. And then if you identify the p-value, the p-value in this case is 0.1457, and in this case the p-value, how does that compare to your alpha value? The p-value is greater than your alpha value. So what that's going to mean, here is how you make the conclusions. What we're saying is, if the p-value is less than the given significance, then you reject the null hypothesis. So in this case, is the p-value less than this level of significance? No, it is not. It's actually greater than. So we will not reject the null hypothesis. Alright? So the conclusion in the context of this problem is that there isn't a relationship between the two variables. because what we're saying, we are not rejecting the p value. We're not rejecting the null hypothesis because the p value is greater than our level of significance. So what we're saying is that the job growth is not related for 2012 to 2010. Part C, explain what the R-squared value means. The R-squared value is the variation of the job growth in 2012. 25% of that is related or accounted for by the job growth in 2010. So that's what this R-squared value represents. It represents the how much of the change in Y can you account for by the change in X. And in this case, it's 25.1%. The last part is asking you, do these results indicate that in general, companies with a higher job growth in 2010 had a higher job growth in 2012? Now, the important thing to recognize for this problem is not asking you if there is a strong enough relationship. So it's not asking you to regurgitate the hypothesis test, whether it failed to reject or rejected the null. It's asking you about more the sign of the coefficient, and by sign it's SIGN of the coefficient. So let's highlight this. What we're saying is, if we have, and I'm going to do a quick sketch, if you have the two variables plotted here, you can have a straight line relationship that does that, and that's a straight line if we use our imaginations a little bit, or this can be a straight line as well. Now, with the coefficient here being positive, it means that it is definitely not gonna be this line here, because this line has a negative slope. So the answer to this part is that there is sufficient evidence that the linear relationship is positive by this value here, and in general it means that higher job growth in 2010 will have higher job growth in 2012. And again, this is a little bit different from what they're asking about in the null hypothesis acceptance or rejection test. So you want to be careful to understand the difference. This part is really dependent solely on whether or not this is a positive or negative value. Alright, and then the rest of it, the p-value as compared to your level of significance, is what will tell you if you're going to accept or reject the null hypothesis. Alright, so thank you for watching.